everyone. Thank you for joining us today on The Vantage Point. We are so excited that you are here with us, and we want to jump right into our discussions for today. Ladies, I have a question. Whether or not you have seen this Facebook post, and I want to get your opinion on that. The post said, "Love yourself enough to get the help you need." The scripture they use is Proverbs 11:14. "Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety." The hashtags is what I think we will have some great conversations about. Prayer and counseling, hashtag fasting and therapy, hashtag it won't hurt at all, hashtag praise and a prescription, hashtag theology and a therapist. And I guess the real question that I want to ask you all is, do you need God and a therapist?
Yes.
Why do you say yes?
Yes. I'll say that for myself, because I was one of those people because I think it's taboo in our culture that we don't need to go to therapy in the African American culture. I know where I'm from, if you had to go sit on the couch, that meant you was crazy. But when I went through the trauma of, when I ended up having to stay in a battered women's shelter, they made us go to therapy. Mm-hmm. So going to therapy, I was just like, I'm not crazy. But I think that was the best thing that I could have ever done in my life. Because yes, God had the church there for me to pray me through, but also he had someone outside of that, because we don't go to church every day, all day, that helped me walk through some things and realize some things about Jessica. I personally think that especially if you've experienced a trauma in your life, or you're going through depression, God set it up that way. I personally believe that he set it. I mean, I don't think he would have given man wisdom on how to deal with us had that not been something that we didn't need. And I still do therapy to this day. I have clients, especially that operate in the psychotherapy field, and I still pay for a session. I still have my sessions every week, and I'm okay with that because it helps me show up as a better woman, personally.
I'm a little more torn on this one because I can't say that there's never like a place for therapy. I've referred people to therapy. I'm like, if you're not gonna let God do it, let's let the doctor do it. And that is what I say. Yeah. I mean, if you don't, because like you mentioned depression. See, I actually believe God can lift depression, and he does.
Absolutely,
yeah, he does. And the same thing, because I'm not against doctors. I know I'm coming in the middle of this one somewhere, but I like to give him first dibs. Let's put it like that.
I agree.
I always give him first dibs. With that said, I think if you're going to get counseling, it matters where you go.
Absolutely.
Because giving somebody access to my mind and my spirit, and they don't know the God that governs my mind and spirit, they can't help me the same way. I think we put a lot of confidence. There's just so many moving pieces here. There's a place for doctors, whether you're talking about physical, mental. There's a place for doctors, but it's the confidence we have in things that I think I have a problem with. That we're so quick to run there first.
Now I agree with that as far as first things being first. Now that's why she said Jesus and a therapist, because I mean, I can go, if I had an ailment, a physical ailment, I will still go get prayer from the elders of the church. However, I am going to go to a physical doctor. Now that physical doctor, that doctor may not be a Christian. He may, and that was something that I really struggle with, and I know we're going to dialogue that, because everybody that's going to help you may not be somebody that's just like, praise the Lord, hallelujah all the time. They still may be able to help you. Now, I personally do go to people who are of the faith, because I don't want anyone telling me to do something that's outside of, like I'm saying, we're talking about therapists as far as the emotional piece of it, correct?
Well,
Dealing with the mind. Are you talking about?
I think we can talk about it in general, because there are many types of counselors, there are many types of therapists. Mm-hmm. The question that I think popped up in my mind as you guys were talking is, if I go to a therapist, does that mean I have less faith?
I don't think so. I personally think Like I'm saying, I'm just being very transparent because I know that when you're traumatized, what I went through in 2005 traumatized me. I needed that help. However, I was one of those kicking and screaming, I don't think I need to go see no. You do need to find out why you're doing what you're doing, why you keep getting in the same cycles of abuse. You have a problem. And I had to come to that conclusion. And I'm glad that it was mandatory that we went to therapy because I found out a lot about Jessica. Now, they did offer me some things to do, but what I did was I went to my pastors and I said, well, what do you think about this? This is what they're suggesting, especially when it comes to medication. And that's a whole nother topic to get on, you know, because some people actually need it. Some people actually need it. But I was like, if I just think that, oh, it's going to be Jesus, God works through different means to heal you. That's me.
Jenny, what are your thoughts?
I have so many thoughts. So many thoughts. I thought Jesus was a counselor. That's my first thought. I thought that was why he came, to heal the brokenhearted. I thought that's why he was here. And having been a person who, depression is a generational curse in my family. So I battle that every day. And to think I need to now go see somebody when the God that I know to be real has always met me. He's always met me. You know, I've had some traumatizing experiences when I was a child, and then as I grew up, I think I told people I go through my midlife crisis when I was 25. Totally did that, so done with that. But God has always met me. And I would never trust another person and whatever it is they would have to say over a God that I know and have a relationship with who's always met me. I would feel like I was cheating on him. That's how I would feel. Because I'm like, God, I've always given you have my whole life in your hands. And now I'm telling you, you probably don't know what you're doing with it. And for me, I'm not saying if people feel like that's what they need, but for me personally, like Takoya said, I give God first dibs, and there's usually nothing left after he gets done. I don't usually have anything left. I mean, you don't have to agree with it. That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to agree with it. I'm talking about for me personally, Jennifer Rogers, and the life that I try to live and have. That's just my take on it. I feel like, my daughter, the school put her in therapy when my mom died, and they didn't tell me. So I'm watching my child, and I'm not sure what's happening, because one thing about kids that people don't realize, kids are so resilient. Things happen to them, but sometimes if you hone in on it and then you keep honing in on, then that becomes who they are. And because I knew how she thought and know how she processed things, it had my daughter so messed up. And I had to go to God to figure out what was happening. And finally, the Lord revealed, your child is going to see a therapist while she's at school. And I knew nothing. So when I go to the school, and I'm like, what's happening right now? Well, we don't have to, your child exhibited X amount, Well, her grandmother just died. Oh, well, she didn't mention that. Because she wrote something that, on a good day, what's a good, beautiful day to her? And she said it's raining outside. That's a beautiful day to her. She likes the rain. Does that mean she's a nut? No. But they took that and decided they're going to put my child in therapy. She had been in there for a few months. And I'm like, and they're telling her she's all these things. Well, my daughter's a researcher. So then she goes and looks these things up and now starts exhibiting all the behaviors they said, well, this is how I'm supposed to act. I don't believe you give yourself creative license like that. That's just me.
So I guess that we're going to see this in differently.
Yeah.
Because to me, I think that therapy, can be a tool that some people need. And maybe it's not something that they do for the rest of their lives, but to me, I have seen it be beneficial. Now let's put this back in to me, from a Christian standpoint, I do believe in faith-based counseling. Because one of the things that we have been accused as, and when I say we, I'm referring to the church, is we go through something very traumatic. You know, I prayed for you. Come on, let's keep moving. Well, I do keep moving, but I'm not okay.
Right.
But sometimes there's pressure, and you guys can tell me if you agree or not, to keep moving, and you'll heal as you go. Well, I don't disagree with that, because I've seen God heal instantly, and I've seen it take some time before I could recognize. And let me say this: it could have been that He healed me, but by the time I recognized, I didn't see it that day.
Right.
And so what I would say to that is, I don't think that you have to be mentally unstable to go to a therapist. I don't think that getting counseling means that I don't have faith in God. But I recognize I need to talk about this more than the people in my immediate, maybe family circle or church want to talk about it.
Right.
And I don't see nothing wrong with that, you know. I think it is a personal opinion whether or not you're going to take medication or anything like that. But I have some friends that are saved therapists, and I thank God for them.
Yep.
You know, because whether I'm going to go lay on their couch or whether I'm going to just call them on the phone and say, hey, I need to talk to you about this. I know the God factor about this. Sometimes I do want to know the science behind this. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
I think where you get the counsel is important. I
Yeah.
mean, I counsel with people all the time. I do. All the time, I could say. And I'm always talking to people, counseling with them. I'm not a licensed therapist. I think I'm better than. I got a good life experience.
Life coach.
I'm seriously. I have a lot of experience. So, and so I think counsel is important.
Yeah.
But the source of the counsel is more important.
Agreed.
There's a wisdom that's of man and a wisdom that's of God. I need you to have that wisdom of God more than the wisdom of man. So I'm not saying you have to go to your pastor to get that per se, but I do think you should have that spiritual oversight if you do go to counseling. I think they should know the voices.
Maybe
of
it's
God.
the term therapy that is a trigger for some, right? Because counseling feels differently to me than therapy. It just does. And maybe that's the buzzword. Because therapy to me means I'm on somebody's couch and you're now dissecting my mind and asking me what I think, right?
And just one more point, like, I know that just one more point. Like, you're a youth pastor. You're over a marriage ministry. You're over, people come to you all the time. So some people may be like, well, why you gotta go talk to, because I need that extra, So I do think what you're saying about the words is what it is. It's the buzzwords. But we all talk to somebody sometime. Now, I do the professional Christian, they have words for it now, coaches and all this stuff. So I do get professional Christian coaching because I need it. If I want to stay sane, I gotta go talk to somebody other than my pastors. I don't want to bug them all the time. So I'm excited about this conversation. But I personally think you need Jesus and a therapist or a coach, whatever you want to define it as.
We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back to continue our conversation on do you need God and a therapist.
Being a foster grandparent has definitely given me a purpose in life.
I love Grandma Lydia. My favorite thing about Grandma Carrot is doing a lot of fun activities.
Just been so happy, just so much more energy than being at home alone doing nothing but watching TV. It's the best part of my life.
I'm a bad student because of her. She helps me with reading sometimes.
I am so proud of the work that I do here.
Best part of being a foster grandparent volunteer, watching the light up in the kids' eyes.
Couldn't be more satisfying.
It makes a difference that you get involved with young people.
Being a foster grandparent has been a wonderful, wonderful experience for me, and I'm not going to give it up.
I'm living again, and the foster grandparent did that for me.
Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Grandma Carol. Thanks, Grandma Jen, for helping me.
Welcome back to The Vantage Point. We're going to finish up our conversation on do you need God and a therapist? It was a pretty passionate conversation, I think. I think we have some pretty strong views about do you need God and a therapist? But my question is, how do you heal? How do you know you've healed? I know people have been in therapy for 20 years. What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to? Are there goals set? How do we know that you've healed from whatever it is that took you there? And then, when do you know? When do you know that that's done? For me, like I said, I think Takoya had mentioned previously, always give God's first dibs. And I was sitting in church and heard a message, and every time a message about forgiveness would be preached, I would have this whole almost allergic reaction to it because I knew it was me, right? I knew I wasn't ready. And then a message was preached that our pastor, Sister Harris, preached called "Old Wounds Stop Talking." Mm-hmm. And you can get that on turningpointfwc.com.
You need to find it.
Because that message is actually there. But when she preached that, I didn't feel that reaction that I normally would feel when stuff like that is talked about. And I went to her and I said, I'm free. That's when I knew I was free. Because that negative, whatever, and I literally felt, it made me sick to my stomach when they would talk about love and they would talk about forgiveness, and because you don't always want to do that. You don't always want to just yield that. But that's when I knew I was healed. I didn't know when God did it. I just knew I was going to take steps regardless of how long it took. I was going to take steps to get there. So how do you know when you've healed? How do you know?
I think the physical healing would be easier to define for a lot of people because I think we do acknowledge, that there are physical issues that you might need medication for. You might have an actual diagnosis that something actually alters the way you think. Okay, if the Lord says the same, you can medicate that. I would love to see us get back to the days of Jesus where we didn't diagnose it first and got to the place where we could lay hands on the sick. That's hashtag goals. Right. But you can walk in that. So there's a physical, but then the emotional is a little harder to define for a lot of people because sometimes you don't know you're healed until you encounter it again. And your reaction has changed. Yeah. I always compare it to, I have this wonderful, gorgeous scar on my knee. It's like this big. And it's from running around the pool, and I'm 7 years old, and I stepped in that little bug thing, and my foot fell through on the edge, and so it scraped it to the bone. And I can still very much see the scar. You can see it too, but it's winter and it's too much to take off to show you. But I know the scar. I know how it got there. I can see the damage it did. It left a mark, but when you touch it, I don't cry. When I tell you about it, I don't feel it come back up. I'm not attached. I'm not running around the pool scared today like, oh no. But I do have an awareness of what happened. That's what I think of forgiveness. It's not me forgetting that something happened to me. It's when the attachment, the emotional attachment to the experience is not attached to the way I walk moving forward. That's how I define it.
I think that's good.
I want to say this. Now, we have another pastor, Pastor Tim Harris. He said something that has resonated with me he said this. He said, there's a danger in healing too fast. And he was talking about what was going on in his eye, I believe. But that always stayed with me. Now, I'm not saying that God wants you to stay depressed, stay down, you asked the question about, are you going to be in therapy for 20 years? So I think this makes year 16 for me, or coaching, let's say it that way. But it's 16 years for me. But I know that I see how God uses everything that we go through. Because even some of the things that I'm doing now, He used that thing and it also keeps me humble. Now, I do believe that I believe that this thorn in my flesh is because of my purpose, what I'm called to do. I know I was one of those girls that watched the TV and was like, what's wrong with her? She don't need to do all that. Girl, don't take all of that. I was one of those people looking on the other side until it happened to me, until I was traumatized, until I went through something that was like, that almost took my life and also almost made me be, because schizophrenia runs in my family, you know, and depression, it runs in my family, till it almost overtook me. You know what I'm saying? I was one of those girls saying, you don't need that. But God gave me a tool through coaching, through counseling, through therapy, whatever word you want to attach to it. He gave me this tool to help Jessica out. You know, and I think sometimes, and I could be all over the place with this, but I just want to make sure that we're having compassion when it comes to how you go get healed may not be how I go. He told somebody to go dip into the pool. Another person, he spit on the ground, and then he put it on their eyes. So your healing may not be my healing, but does it mean that I'm not, you know, that I'm not healed or that I'm not healing correctly?
I don't know, but I think there's, and I'm asking you, how long do you stay in counseling? Like, especially if you think, oh, this is a thorn in my flesh for the sake of my ministry, then why do you still need them?
It's not so much that I need it, I'll say, but I know what has helped me. We all do things, I believe, that helps us to be who we are. Like you, now I know people like you, Takoya. Takoya goes up to preach. I'm like, this girl can preach. I know other people, they gotta have something in their hands. They have whatever you need, whatever you need to help you be who you are. I think that's what you should do. I think if you need the therapy, now listen, like I said, when I was going through something, they said, well, you need to put your son on this medication, because my son was acting out because of what we were going through. He was 7 years old at the time, okay? But they wanted to highly dose him, highly medicate him. Then I found out that the medicine that they were gonna put him on, winging him off of it would have been like winging somebody off a heroin. But I went to my pastor, and she said, I wouldn't just put my child on no medication. I would go see what God had to say about it. And I did that. She said, go to the altar and cry out to God and ask him what to do. And I followed the directions of my leader. My son never had to go that route. However, I've seen God use that to help other people. That doesn't mean that you're wrong if you do it. I hope I'm coming across correctly.
Yeah, I just wonder how long though. Like,
does it matter how long? But does it matter how long as long as you do it?
When you become dependent, like I can't make decisions, I can't do anything. And I'm not saying you. I'm just saying some people can go to that. Well, I need to go talk to my therapist. I can't do anything.
But what if that's what they need?
But how does that help you live? What is that quality of life? What if that person dies? Now what? Because I don't want to be dependent on a person that could not be there. What if they moved? What if they decided they don't want to do this anymore?
True.
Then what, right? So I just think that you have to think about those things when you're talking about tying your life to something like that.
But that goes, well, I'm sorry, that goes into another conversation of codependency.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not codependent. No, understand. I'm not codependent, but however you get to your mark of healing, why does it matter how long? And this is me. This is me. This is me. This is me. This is me.
no, it's just the statement. How does it matter? I think it matters how you get there. Always will matter.
Always. No,
not just the mark. It's not just what you do. It's how you do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm saying when I say how, I mean, why does it matter if it takes me this long? Now listen. I be praying when I go through stuff. Lord, heal me instantly. You know, but also I'm learning that the process is just as important as the healing. That's me.
So I would add to this conversation.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, Krista. You know, look who I'm sitting between. You already know.
I love it. We need this because we're not the only ones having this dialogue. We're not the only ones thinking this. But I think as a woman of faith, my foundation is always going to be Jesus Christ. I need you to heal me. You know? And I think I don't want to give the impression, and maybe some people do, but to me, if I do, I'm not looking for a replacement. Let's say that.
That's it.
I'm not
That's the word.
looking
Yep.
for, I don't think God needs a coach.
Right.
You know, I don't think
He
that.
doesn't need an assistant.
I don't think he does. But at the same time, I respect other people's processes.
Absolutely.
You know, I again, all of us serve in different roles and different capacities, and people might not call it this, as we were talking earlier. They may not call it counseling when they call us, but essentially that's what we're doing. We're talking to them. We're talking them through something. But the question was, how do you heal and how do you know when you're healed? And
that was the question.
my
wasn't it?
response, my response tells me if I'm healed or not.
Yes.
You know, if you did something wrong to me and now all of a sudden when I see you, I don't want to speak to you, I can't stand you, something wells up, I know I still need to be saying, God, keep healing me, because it's required that I forgive you. But the healing part, sometimes you find out that you're healed when the test comes back around, when the person comes back around. And alluding back to the point that Takoya was making, I know I'm healed when I can see the scar, but I touch it, it shouldn't still hurt. If I got in a bike accident when I was 10 and it still hurts, I know something didn't heal right, something's wrong. And then I am gonna reach out. I'm gonna ask God to help me, and I might talk to somebody else who's been through what I'm trying to overcome and ask them, how did God do it for you? You know, a lot of times we tell people just to get over it, but we don't always say, hey, this is how God did it for me. It took time, it took prayer. You know, I couldn't just pick up the phone and call somebody. I had to talk to God about this. And I think we have to be mindful that there's no shortcuts. There's no master coach. I know they have titles like that. But Jesus Christ really is the master of every situation. And we will heal because of him, you know?
Doesn't Jesus work through people? Am I the only one? I mean, Jesus works through people. And if I gotta go sit down and talk, like I've called Takoya. I even quoted you on the radio show, on my first radio show. Because of the information that you gave me. That was a mini counseling session.
But that was the wisdom of God.
Okay, you understand what I'm saying.
But I'm saying they can't get that without God.
I'm not gonna see anybody that doesn't have the same faith. Now that's an automatic, like, no.
Well, I think we're gonna have to wrap this conversation up because it could go on for a whole hour. We could talk about this.
These continue it on our Facebook page.
I think we can continue this on our Facebook page. Please like the Vantage Point on Facebook. We are real women with real issues, real lives, serving a real God.
Yeah,
and we want to share that with you, and we hope that you'll interact with us on Facebook, and we hope to see you next week. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
That was good. Sorry.